check in the library. Thank you, Miss Marilyn. Make sure that you guys check in the library for the calendar or look online for the calendar, because our board, our wonderful board, is trying to get a lot of new things started for us. So they have a lot of things in the making. The one thing that I will say, or actually two things, don't forget, of course, did you guys notice how I did two things? Yes, I'm a smart girl. We will be closed on Christmas Day at the library, but they'll be open the next day, and everything that usually runs on that day will start again, like Angel's Grace and everything. On January 5th, I believe it's 3:00, they've opened the chess lessons, not just for teens like they had it to begin with, but for everybody. So if you're interested in learning chess, come to the library and learn chess. It's for all ages. And Shelly's going to tell us more, but just so you guys know, on January 16th and on the 30th are our next two movies. So I think everybody is a member of the Friends. If you are not, I don't know how many years ago I said it is literally the best $10 you can spend. You get so much entertainment value for that. But we also love to have a lot more money. We have, I think, upwards to 500 members now. And that the member, look, Marilyn, I got it right. Marilyn's nodding her head. The members are who pay for programs like Bringing Shelly to Us and some of the other fantastic programs that we have. So make sure that you become a member if you're not. And I had somebody just ask me this week. Close to your renewal date, you will get a letter with your new card in there. And you can do multiple ways. You can either take your renewal money to the library and give it to them. They'll give it to the Friends. You can use the website and do PayPal, or you can mail it in, either way, and then it will become active. But so if you're close to your date, don't worry, just hang on to the card you've got. There's pretty much nothing that we do that you absolutely have to have a dated card for, and you will get your new one. So, I mean, they only do the cards like maybe once a month, I think. So don't worry if you don't get your card right away. But with all of that, Mr. Shelley, first of all, you guys, happy holidays. Whatever you are celebrating, have a wonderful time. It's peace and love. Pass it on to everyone you know. A smile is a wonderful thing.
And a healthy one. You have to be healthy to enjoy it.
You're absolutely right. Healthy, happy, it's peace, it's joy, it's love. We're all in this together. So, Shelley, if you want to take it from there, we'll go on.
Thank you, Jackie. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see those I can see.
Shelley, did you freeze or did we?
Did I?
Oh, good. Okay.
Am I not coming through?
You certainly are.
You're back now.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you, those I can see. The rest of the names, but we have a nice little group here tonight. Okay, this is the last film of the year, and I thought I would end on both a classic and a little bit of an uplifting note. The King of Masks from 1995. It is directed a film. It's a film directed. The director's name is Wu Tianming. He was a studio head in the 1980s and helped bring what became known as the fifth generation of Chinese filmmakers to prominence. Now, you have to understand that during the Cultural Revolution, most of the film studios in China were closed down, except for the making of propaganda films. And so there was no filmmaking school open. They reopened Beijing University after the Cultural Revolution and the filmmaking school. And he was one of the directors of that school. Now, if you're familiar with Chinese directors, especially Zhang Yimou, who did Raise the Red Lantern, among many of his other great films. Also, Chen Kai-ji, who did Farewell, My Concubine, and many other directors that their films are superb, and many of them are still working today. After the Tiananmen Square revolt, however, Wu left China and came to the United States and lent his expertise in Hollywood, and returned again to China in 1995. This was his first film after his homecoming. And although it has no overt political message, perhaps it is no accident that its hero is a stubborn artist who clings to his secrets, who clings to his secrets. It's an absolutely, I find it to be a film of great simplicity, beauty, and surprising emotional power. As the story begins in the 1930s in and around Szechuan Province, it is a particularly bleak period of Chinese history. The people were ravaged by civil conflict among warlords at the time, incursions by Japan, naturally, and a rising communist movement. And natural disasters like floods and droughts were also affecting the country, as well as hunger. As captured skillfully by the cinematography, we're immersed in this impoverished world where street entertainers attract crowds hungry for anything to lift their spirits. It is here we first meet the king, a lonely old man who ekes out a meager living by his mask-changing talents, able to reveal up to 14 facial masks in a matter of seconds. And later I'll talk more about that whole process because it is real. So quickly does he do it that crowds have no idea how the magic is performed. We're also introduced to other characters at the beginning who will be prominent in the story later on. We quickly see a little boy, his name is Tianchi, and his family, who will play a role. Later on, there is also the Badavista, Liang Shaolong, a celebrated female impersonator in the opera, who befriends the king, imploring him to join his troupe of performers. But as the king insists he cannot, and that only a male heir can learn his secrets, the diva, and as he's known, the diva admits to him that he too is only a minor player, being a half woman, as he says, and he advises the king to find an heir so that his secret art will continue. And of course, there is little doggy. The screenplay centers on these two, on little doggy and the king, these two desperate people. We learned that the king lost a son some 20 years before, has no one to pass his secrets to, and he is alone and despondent. However, when he goes to a market where children are either sold or given away by parents or others who can't care for them, he finds it deplorable that they would sell their children. And we see that little girls have no value at all, while boys will fetch a price. However, walking away despondent, his spirits are raised when the cast-off 8-year-old yells out, "Grandpa, Grandpa." He's taken by this and capturing his, and the little boy captures his heart, not to mention ours as well. Bringing Doggy back to his boat, he's overjoyed to have someone he can pass his secrets to. But Doggy, who has concealed her gender behind a short haircut, is discovered by the king's monkey general, another great actor in the film, and later by the king when he asks her to urinate into a cloth he needs for a wounded leg. Feeling cheated and discarding Doggy, she tearfully explains that she pretended to be a boy because she had been sold 7 times already. The man who sold her was not her father, but a man who abused her like all the others. She promises to scrub the deck, do the cooking, and be a good doggy. And jumping into the river, he decides he can't turn away. He decides to save her and let her stay. There is a terrific cinematic montage that follows as he teaches her acrobatics, to which she takes to easily, and they both perform for street crowds. But when the headstrong Doggy wants to learn the king's secret, she inadvertently starts the fire that will destroy the king's boat. Running away, the story takes a Dickensian turn when she's kidnapped off the street and finds that she's to watch over little Tianchi, the little boy who we saw at the beginning and was also kidnapped from his family, both to be sold. Doggy manages to help little Tianchi escape and tries to make up for her previous act by leaving the king the son he so longed for. But with no good deed going unpunished, she sees the king arrested. And although he tells the truth, the police conveniently charge him with kidnapping all the children who were missing and sentence him to die. Doggy, wanting to save him, remembers the opera where Lang played a princess who becomes the Buddha who saves souls in trouble, and goes to see him, waiting in front of his house. Trying in vain, he is rebuffed. But at the opera, Doggy has a plan, and her acrobatic heroics at the end seem like a melodrama until we reflect that, trained by a street artist, she would have known what she was doing. And finally, thanks to Liang, the king and Doggy are reunited. And in that poignant yet uplifting ending, it is the king who has learned that some traditions require changing, especially where females are concerned. And it certainly is one of the film's key themes, that when it comes to companionship, initiative, and courage, daughters can yield the same benefits as sons. For a Western audience, this may seem like an obvious message for all of us, but in the patriarchal Chinese culture of the era, male children were greatly prized, while females were not. One can argue at great length about how true that remains today. And while the King of Masks falls far short of a cry for sexual equality, it nevertheless seeks to demonstrate the social shortcomings of the simple yet painfully short-sighted ideal of not valuing girls. It is, in fact, an act of extreme bravery and loyalty on Doggy's part that precipitates the movie's resolution, wondering if a boy would go that far. Anyway, the chief virtue of the film is its realistic portrayal of the growing attachment between these two of society's outcasts. The story also contains elements of fable. There is the story of the changeling, a popular theme in many cultures. And we see it in that of the little girl who becomes a boy, or the little boy who becomes a girl in this case, and of a brilliant opera star who is only seen as a woman on stage, but a well-dressed and courtly man off stage. And there is also a story of ancient secrets. It is through the transformation of characters and revelations that this story gains its weight. Like so many Chinese films that portray a China in the pre-industrial times prior to the 1990s, it benefits enormously from the beauty of the setting. The cinematography is gorgeous. The costumes and the customs. Notice how Doggy's costumes change during the course of the film. It's poignant to realize that a society of such beauty existed within the last 100 years. The river life of Wang and Doggy may be at that poverty level, but it has a quality that money can't buy, a quality that money can't buy. As well as this classic tale, Wu Tianming, the director, reveals to us conventions of Chinese opera. He cuts several times the performances led by the revered diva Liang Xiaolang. He is, well, I'll get to him in a little bit, the actor who portrays him, leaving us with the impression that this Chinese art form shares certain protocols with Greek and Japanese theater. Liang, in the role of a man who regularly plays a female character, shows his audience in the movie seats that Chinese opera is anything but the bizarre exhibition that we in the West have taken it to be. And by the conclusion of this soulful film, we are reminded even of King Lear by this King of Masks, a man who for a time discards the daughter who loves him the most, ultimately redeemed by an insight he acquires altogether late in the game. The art of face changing, as we see in the film, is known as Bian Lian, an ancient Chinese dramatic art that is part of the traditional Szechuan opera, which is why the diva asked him to join the troupe. It is part of the Szechuan opera. Performers wear brightly colored costumes and move to quick dramatic music. They also wear vividly colored masks, as the king did, typically depicting well-known characters from the opera. which they change from one face to another almost instantaneously with the swipe of a fan, a movement of the head, or a wave of the hand. Szechuan opera masks are the important part of the Szechuan opera performances. They are treasures that the ancient opera artists worked together to create and pass down. In fact, the secret of the face change has been passed down from one generation to the next within families. Traditionally, as we hear in the film, only males were permitted to learn beyond Leon. The theory being that women did not stay within the family and would marry out, increasing the risk that the secret would be passed to another family. Historically, Beyond Leon had rarely been seen outside of China because non-Chinese were not permitted to learn the art form. But since the mid-2000s, it's been performed occasionally in international mass media and at Chinese-themed events. And in fact, it was performed by a non-Chinese performer on America's Got Talent some years ago, as well as being featured on Penn and Teller's Magic Mystery Tour, a production that they did for NBC when they went to China to film a performance of Beyond Leon. The Szechuan opera actor who performed it changed his mask so fast that not even the video camera could register how it was done. That's how quickly they work. Zhu Zhu as Wang, the King of Masks, was a prominent Chinese actor and acting teacher, known for his roles in The King of Masks and another film entitled Shower, for which he won a number of Best Acting awards. Zhao Zhigang, who portrays Liang, is an actual Chinese opera star of the most popular form of opera known as Yuzhu opera. He is a brilliant performer, especially of men's roles. Here's the irony, which ironically are traditionally played almost exclusively by women. In China, the men's roles are played by women. It's very interesting how they switch. And the fantastically talented Zhu Ren Ying, who plays Doggy, is a delightful find. Her performance is truly heartbreaking. She also demonstrates a remarkably flexible body. I love the montage when he's teaching her the acrobatic tricks. I've never seen a kid so flexible in my life. It's simply amazing to watch someone contort herself the way Zhu does. Born in 1986, she was only 9 years old when she got the role and had already been trained as an acrobat from very early childhood because, in fact, this was her only film role. She was a member of the Xi'an acrobatic troupe that combines ballet with acrobatics in their performances. And still today, they are known for performing their rendition of Swan Lake at venues around the world and have been described as mesmerizing, awe-inspiring, and a testament to the artist's skill and precision. So there you have my short take on the film, some interesting backstory to the film that you would not know, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Now I'd love to turn it over to an audience discussion. So who wants to go first? Who has something to, Arlette, I see your hand shaking. Go right ahead.
Unmute myself.
Okay.
Like I said before, and I think everybody was on board, that this is the third time I've watched it. And somehow the same feeling, the wonderful relationships just grow deeper every time you see the film one more time. The compassion between Doggy and Grandpa is like unreal. The sadness, though, historically, is back in China at that time when, like you said, poverty, children were sold and given away. Parents could not help them out. And unfortunately, abuse of children takes place to this day all over the world, unfortunately. But as the film continues, what grabbed me, which I kind of didn't recall, is when Doggy put a fire to the boat. And later on, she runs back and finds the box with the masks. And I was saying, wait a minute, wasn't that on the boat too? How was that saved? That was my question. How was that saved with an entire fire going on? Perhaps you can
Well,
answer that.
she had the semblance of mind. I don't know. It's we have to, we have to suspend some disbelief in a film. But
I mean, it was wonderful. I mean, it was like, oh, you just want to clap and you're so happy for her. But her acting ability was tremendous, as well as that ancient actor. What was his name? What's his Chinese name? Grandpa?
You mean Grandpa was?
Yeah.
I will tell you in a moment. Was his name is Zhu? Well, Zhu.
Zushu. Okay. I was
Yeah.
curious because
Yeah.
he was
He passed away in
fantastic.
2018 at the age of 87.
What happened?
He passed away in 2018 at
I
the age of
figured he
87.
did by then, but
Yeah.
he always stays with me. This film just stays with me from beginning to end. And it does show the beauty that we females do win at the end as an equality with males. It
Well,
was just a magnificent film, and it is a gem, a true
Thank
gem.
you. Thank you. I also didn't mean to ignore the other character, that other character in the film. The monkey was terrific.
Oh, I
And
forgot the monkey. Yes.
yes, yes. And the little guy inside the costume was also good. But the monkey was really fun.
Very well trained.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Steve Greenberg.
Hi, Shelly.
Hi, nice to see you.
I wanted to say that this reminded me of La Strada a lot. The Fellini
Yes.
film with Anthony Quinn as Zampano, the performer, the strongman performer.
Steve,
and,
I got to interrupt you
Giuliano
for
de
1
Messina
second.
as Gelsomina.
Yeah, Steve, I'm doing the film in the spring. We're going to be doing it here in the
Oh,
spring.
good.
Yeah, it's
That
funny you
stays
brought
with
it
you
up.
too. But the relationship between the two of this little, waif that he adopts or gets stuck with,
Yes.
and then comes to love at the end, although the other film is much more tragic. I shouldn't have given away, but it just reminded me a lot of La Strada.
That's a great comparison. I love it. The sort of the realism of this time, the neo-realism of that time, being on the road, and here they're on the river. It's true. It's true. It bears some similarities, and I am sure that the director, who is international, was embedded in his mind. I'm sure it's one of the great themes. So it's a great comment. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Rachel.
I loved the movie. I thought it was also a real gem. I loved the characters and how it, like when he pulled away from the boat and I'm going, oh my God, he cannot leave her. And, and I loved that he came back for her, but he was ready to pull away. And I just loved that element of it. And also, it was heartbreaking and heartwarming in the same movie. And I thought that is great for a movie, that you really felt for the characters, and how you felt so sorry for Doggy. And Doggy was so persevered through it all, no matter what happened to her. She was going to survive and she was going to help the king. And he did not abuse her, but he wasn't always the best to her either. And she was still determined to be with him. And, even the fact that he called her like Doggy, just like the monkey, it was just like, a stage performer. And that was cathartic, that scene with the police officer saying, give me your secrets. Tell me your secrets. And it was just like, the thing is, he was also a monkey too, in a way. They were all like part of the whole public trying to, scratch out a living. And everybody was struggling, but everybody came together to survive. I loved the movie.
Terrific, terrific, great comments. Yes, it was, and it's interesting that, this being a Chinese film, you wouldn't have, we don't see any dogs. That's why we have a monkey. In a film, if it was done here, there would be a dog instead of a monkey. It's an interesting difference in culture that we get there. Thank you, Rachel. Candy.
Hi.
Hi.
So we showed this at the Monday matinee back in August of 2020. Loved the film. And one of the things that I went over my notes from watching that film back then. I went to Amazon to see reviews of how people make comments on their films. And one of them said that the film was banned in China, and they loved these people. They wanted their friends in China to see it. So when they got back to the States, they sent them a copy of the film, and then they were never able to find out how the friends felt about the film because the friends were afraid of being caught commenting on a film that they were not allowed to see. So I thought that was an interesting, and that's more up to date, 2020, and yet there was still that issue with being banned. And they didn't say why the film was banned, but I guess it doesn't look too good to the Western world to have kids sold. I'm assuming that kind of thing. And there's another favorite film I'd like to recommend to you someday. Red Like the Sky has a children in the cast, and it's a wonderful film, Italian film.
Terrific. Red Like the Sky?
Yes.
Okay.
It's based on a true story. It's fascinating.
Is it a recent film or
No, it's
I'll look it up.
not, but yeah.
Okay, I'll look it up. Thank
yeah.
you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Okay. Who else? I don't see any other hands out there. Marilyn, go ahead.
Candy, thank you. It was because of you that I saw it. I watched it, right? And now, Shelly, because of you, I saw it. And as I'm watching it, I'm saying it sounded really familiar. And at first I thought maybe it was a repeat, but Candy, thank you. It was just wonderful seeing it with you, and then seeing it again. I love Doggy. Oh my God, she was wise beyond her years. And sometimes you just had to give it a little poetic license that she could have been so mature and so thoughtful and so smart and so, but you just bought it because she was absolutely delicious. And I'm sorry that she never made another movie.
Yeah, well, she went on. She had a career in acrobatics and ballet. That was really seemed to be where she was, what she wanted to do. I could get not much information on her.
She was
There's not
wonderful. The whole cast, even the little boy who was kidnapped.
He was terrific when he hands the egg.
But it told you a lot about that family with all their wealth and with all it just happened to, from the poorest to the wealthiest kids, it did not matter.
Yes,
right?
true.
It was just so sad.
Thank you, Marilyn. And as you said, so that the audience understands what Marilyn is talking about, I have a basic rule, which is you have to see a movie twice. The first time you watch it, the second time you see it. The second time you'll see it. Because things go by so fast. The first time you're not thinking, and then the second time you know what you're expecting, and then watching inside the frame, you can see the details and maybe more of the theme. Jackie and Larry.
Well, I was going to say a couple of things, but then a third thing popped in, and I already had said to Shelly, I was really glad the monkey made it through the movie. I was really, really worried when the fire started that the monkey was going to be gone. But a couple of things. I thought this movie wasn't heavy on dialogue, which I was fine with, but what it was heavy on was empathetic looks between people, the expressions on people's faces, and really nobody had a monopoly on that, including General. The tight close-ups on the eyes of that monkey were absolutely fantastic, I thought, because it was literally like he was looking into not just that character's soul, but our souls. And I really liked that. Another thing I thought was very interesting was that as little, not being judgmental about another society, it's not our society, but as little regard as they seem to have for females, the person they held in the highest regard was a female impersonator. And I thought that was really kind of interesting, that I just thought that was an interesting concept.
It is. And not only that, it's the irony of it was that the women at the beginning were stressing the fact that if you touch him, you'll have a boy. There was that irony of if you touch him, he's the greatest female impersonator, but if you touch him, you'll have a boy. So I thought that there's a wonderful irony in the film. But yes, the monkey, it is true. There's a lot of great reaction shots in the film. Really well done, on all these actors' parts, the looks. When Doggy discovers the little boy and she starts to eat all his food, he's looking at her and he realizes, boy, she's hungry, and he offers her the egg. And then how she guides him out, how they get him out. It's understandable how she could do all of this. And, being little kids, they were able to climb through small spaces, but it just lends itself to the reality of the film. So I thought that was wonderful. Thank you, Jackie. Yes, Arlette, I don't want you to fall down. What?
No, I won't. I'm solid. No, just like you mentioned about where she's eating the rice, I think in the very beginning, didn't he make a motion with his hand in his mouth like he was hungry too? In the very beginning, just as she's starting to eat out of the bowl. And then I was surprised, out came the egg, that he really felt.
Yes, it
for
looked
her.
like he was like, why are you eating my food? Yes, he
Yeah,
had that
I
expression
saw
on his
that,
face.
that hand motion just for a split second was there,
Yes.
and then she was so busy, she didn't even see it. She was starving, the poor thing. But I too am an animal lover, and boy, did I love that monkey. Oh, stole the show.
Glad you like the monkey. Rachel, did you have something
And
else?
yes, I wanted to say to Arlette, when you mentioned about the fire and how the masks were saved, what happened is, remember she took stuff off the boat, including his box of things?
Yeah.
It might have been in that.
Oh, true. Yeah.
And that's how it got out, because she was taking stuff that was important for his show off the boat.
Yeah. Thank you.
And also it's the relationships of how they break down and come together. The importance of relationships is seen throughout the movie from every aspect, from every person that the street performer gets involved with, from the police officers, from Doggy, from the monkey. It's all about relationships, how we, get together and how we break apart and come back together again.
Yeah. I also like the fact that they signify the boy has a little tea spout. That was adorable.
Oh, yes, and her discovery. So that's what it is. Yeah.
Little
That
tea
was sweet.
spout. Okay.
That was sweet. Candy, to talk to you about why it might have been banned. There is a scene in the film when they're questioning him, and they first of all, the police torture him. And then after they torture him, he signs the confession. And then the police chief says, oh, we can get him on all the kidnappings. Sort of, showed this wrong thinking of the police. And that might have been one of the things that tipped their little tea spout. Interesting. It just recalled the scene. So that might have had something to do with it. Thank you. Sandra Lefkowitz. You got to unmute, Sandra. There you go. You got to do it again.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, one of the things that I found very important, everything that everyone said, I totally agree with, but I think if you've been to China in the last decade or so, the water is a very significant part of this film, and it's a character in the film, actually, as far as I'm concerned. And I think it was a very clever use of the difference between the land portions and the water portions, because the land is the chaotic, crowded world, and the world of these people is made possible because of the gentleness of the water. And it brought to mind, we had done a trip to Guilin, and on the boat, you're involved in the beauty that we saw in the film. The cinematography was incredible. And when you got to land, when the boat landed at any of the stops along the way, it was chaos and poverty. And here you saw the same thing. You got back to real life. The gentleness of when she prepares a table for him, a formal table, when doggy Thurs feeds him. I thought this water was used so beautifully. And it also reflected, I think, a lot of the old traditions of the Chinese culture. I think it brought that all together. When he goes to visit the seer who tells him that he's going to have a son, I think it had to be on the water. I felt that the script was incredible. It was a fairy tale, and you have to suspend belief, but it was beautiful. And the whole idea of fortune and misfortune being a part of life, and it was very reflective of a Chinese culture that had been, with its goods and its bad. And I think it was a brilliant selection.
Oh, thank you. All your comments are so valid, but it's also, remember, it's the suspension of disbelief, not belief. We suspend our disbelief. But yes, the river, that's very well taken. The river is serenity. It's very serene. If you notice, it's very smooth. The boats glide, and they glide on the water, and it is a life force, very much a life force in the film. But I love that comparison you made between the chaos of the land and the serenity of the river. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Who's next? I want to see another hand. Wendy, go right ahead.
Unmute.
You got to unmute yourself, Wendy.
Unmute, okay.
That's it. You're
All right.
unmuted.
I thought the most poignant part for me was when King was in the sampan going away from her, and she was running along the edge of the wharf trying to catch up with him, and suddenly she sees him and she's trying to make contact, and she drops the little purse with money, and she's more interested in being with him rather than any worldly good. And I thought that was powerful. And I also thought the Chinese, the opera part was wonderful. It was so real. It was so well done. And the interchange of male, female parts, which is what they do at the Chinese opera. And of course, the high pitch was so uncomfortable to listen to, but that's the way it's done.
Yes,
This little girl.
I loved his outfits. I mean, not just on the stage, but the tuxedo he wore, that great coat.
And fur.
It really, there was a certain attention to detail in the film, which I really looked at. Doggy's little costume changes at different times as they grow closer, and towards the end when she's wearing that beautiful red outfit. All of these, and watching her transformation, because the film is about transformation as well. How she becomes almost defiant with the crowd at times, especially with the soldiers, when they, she starts to berate them, and they want to go after her. But it's very interesting. Everything's done, but it's also revealing the fact that while it's this whole Chinese cultural aspect, it's also very universal. It's a universal story. There's no question about it. So much so that the film grossed over $1 million in the United States, which back in the 90s is a lot of money for a foreign language film. Very few films reach that plateau, coming from either Europe or Asia, and that was pretty good. That was
The
pretty
other
good.
humanistic thing I saw in the film was when she's scrubbing the floor of the sampan on the deck, and then when she prepares a meal for him, she's got flowers in a vase. I
Yeah.
thought that was so special and so unusual to see on a sampan.
Terrific, terrific. You really saw it. That's great. That's
Loved it.
great.
Love the
Thank
film.
you, Wendy. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Maybe else have anything? Yeah, Marilyn?
I thought that this film also contrasted, and in many films, especially the traditional societies like China, where it takes the rigid rules of society and contrasts it against the emotions like love and that you feel towards people. And I thought that, you know, in many of the films we see this, but I think it was very poignant in this one, where he had to adapt his rigid rule of society for him and deal with his love for Doggy. And you find that in a lot of films, and I thought that in this one it was like right in our face.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And it is ironic that, you know, when they imposed, even though they lifted it at times, the two-child rule, or the one-child rule actually, was because they didn't, it was violated a lot because they would have daughters. And if they had daughters, they would give them up. They would either give them away, sell them, or even leave them by the side of the road. I mean, they really, so that they could have a boy. It was more important for them to have a boy. So he shows us, that's the wrong thinking. He's showing his own society that. Unfortunately, they didn't get to see it, but. Anyway, anybody? Yeah, Arlette?
Well, just because of your comment, because so many girls were adopted from China that all of a sudden they didn't have enough women for the men. And that's why they changed their rule to have more children. That's why they had to change it in reality.
Not enough girls?
Yeah, no, that's what happened. There were too many really. There were too many female babies sold. And that's why they changed that you could have more babies. That's what's in effect right now.
That makes sense.
And I also, just because this is history, okay, in reality, I met someone that adopted a little Chinese girl many years ago. 3 years later, I met her in Publix and she says to me, her husband's going to get their son. I said, from China? China doesn't sell there or get their boys adopted. Well, he was born with a few missing fingers. And that's why they allowed him to be adopted. And it was when they had SARS, the disease. And the husband, I think, spent 1.5 months to bring that baby home. And I thought it was wonderful. And I sent them to a fabulous, fabulous doctor who can create new fingers out in Virginia. It was a very poignant story to hear from her, but that's the only time they would relinquish a boy to be adopted.
Yeah, it's, in Asia, it's happening in other places too. In Japan, in fact, they're encouraging women to have children. They're giving them a day off during the week to have children, to have sex, so that they would have a child. This is becoming well known in Japan. They're trying to pass this law. It's very interesting what's going on in Asia. Anyway, Jackie.
I just have one more thing that nobody has brought up, and I was kind of surprised. I wasn't surprised in the least that Doggy was a girl. The instant that that guy tried to sell the child, I assumed that if it was a boy, he really wouldn't want, especially as beautiful as that child was, he wouldn't be selling a boy. So I assumed it was a girl, but I felt like Grandpa so desperately wanted a boy, and he had had the seer say that he was going to get a boy, that he probably overlooked it. He had to have had a gut feeling exactly like I did, is that nobody's going to sell a beautiful boy like that. So I thought that was kind of interesting too.
Well, yes and no. I mean, he was asking $10, which was an outrageous price when you think about it. And he wasn't her father. He didn't care. He really didn't care. He was just looking to sell a kid. The same with those two guys that were kidnapping the kids were looking to sell them.
That's true. Of course, Grandpa didn't know that he wasn't the father at the time. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I
well, he
see
said,
your
how
point,
could he
but
be
I
the
just,
father?
I
He
just
did
thought it
say to
was
him, how could I be your father? He just callously let you go.
exactly. I agree.
Yes, he could have been in some form of denial, but whether he was or not, I don't know. But it was interesting when he learns about it, how indignant he becomes that he blames her for it. Is not realizing, he has to learn, and this is part of the revelation of the film. Thank you, Jackie. Karen.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment that I don't really think that women are valued, even in this country, women and girls, and a lot of the world, probably most of it. They claim to value, but they don't actually. And that's, I mean, the actions, I believe, of how things are is what makes me think that.
I can understand your thinking. It is true that a lot of people haven't, transformed or adapted or would disagree with you. It seems to still be a tough battle. As long a way as you've come, it's not far enough. It's
Right.
not far enough. Until there is absolute equality in this world between men and women, we won't have peace. We won't have peace. It just seems to be the rule. Anyway, anybody else? Anybody else have anything? No? Well, let me tell you a little bit about our year to come. There is a theme to the year to come, and the theme is a simple one. It's entitled World Cinema Now and Then. Each month I will be doing a contemporary film at the beginning of the month and a classic film at the end of the month, both from each country. So we'll be exploring a number of cultures in a number of different countries, from a contemporary point of view and a classic point of view. So you'll have a viewpoint of how far they've come in cinema, and what stories they told at one time and what stories they tell now. So it gives us a good survey of world cinema. And we'll be starting off in January 16th, with a film entitled Driving Madeline. Driving Madeline. It's a wonderful story that I am sure will move you as much as this film did. It's about a woman who has to leave her small apartment on the edges of Paris to join an adult care facility on the other side of the city. And a taxi driver, Charles, comes to pick her up. And in no hurry to reach her destination, she asks him to make a few stops along the way. And those stops will become engrossing in terms of the film and revelation of character. It is what I call a two-hander. Two characters mainly dominate the film, and they are wonderful performances. I'll tell you more about the actors when I see you and when you see the film. It's got great music, terrific performances, and the cinematography is interesting, and the story is engrossing. So you can't miss. So I'll look forward to seeing you in January for Driving Madeline. Any other questions or comments before we close the door? Yes, Paulette.
The first film cruise you ever had, my husband and I went on it.
I
And it was a
know.
fabulous movie from Finland. I don't, of course, remember the name, but it was about a young, beautiful woman that went to Finland, either to live or to visit, and that what transpired. And I think what's interesting about people in Finland, I found out through the movie festival this time, is that when there's no sarcasm in the speech of language of the Finnish people, okay? They say it just the way it is. If I say, meet someone, oh, hi, how are you? Oh, well, we'll have to go to lunch. Well, in Finland, if you say you go out to lunch, if you ask someone, how do you feel? You better not do that, because they will have you there 1 hour telling them all their problems in Finland. And the movie was fabulous, but I don't know the name of it.
Well,
And
I will look it up
bring
for
one-
you.
I
I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Finland. It might have been, might have
No,
been
it was
Iceland.
Finland.
It was? Okay,
I
I'll
was-
look it up.
Well,
I'll-
or Iceland, who knows?
I think it was
But
Iceland.
I thought it was Finland, and it was such a fabulous, and it spoke to everybody in that film of reality that we experience and other people experience. So why don't you bring a film from Finland or Iceland on board?
We've done films from
Well, I'd like
Finland,
another
yes.
one.
Okay. Sandra,
Well, piggybacking on what you just has talked about, one of the things that I've really appreciated with the films I've seen with you so far is, as an American watching film, we are beginning to understand and appreciate the expertise of people in other places who may have similar kinds of issues with different solutions. And historically, when we don't always speak a language, it's sometimes very hard to enter into the culture. And what your films are allowing me personally to do is to enter into a culture in a different way. So I really am appreciating the choices, and I'm looking forward to the then and a now of next year, because not speaking French particularly well, the film will tell us a lot.
yes, it will. And thank you for that, because that's exactly one of the reasons that I enjoy doing this, is I enjoy seeing these other cultures and seeing these films and comparing them and finding the universality in them, and also the differences. So thank you, Sandra.
Kelly, I also feel that in a lot of the films that we see with you, there's definitely not as much talking, speaking voices as in American, maybe even British films. It's more the cinematography, the facial expressions, that, much less than the verbal stuff that comes out of our mouths, which I think as we see them, we adapt to that and appreciate them. But but Sandra said, it's a big change.
Yeah. Thank you.
I
you.
think
Oh,
it's the
Roberta.
European films. The European films
I'm
have
sorry.
so much more depth and so much more insight than what comes out of Hollywood, which is so often not natural or normal or understandable. Keep doing it, Shelley. I'm learning so much from every film I've watched that you suggested. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Roberta, nice to see you. Go ahead. You got to unmute, Roberta.
Sorry.
Okay.
Good to see you too. I was wondering, can you disclose the classic film that you're pairing this French movie with?
Driving
it-
Madeline? Yes, I
and
can.
Is there a reason why you've paired that particular film with it?
No, there's not. The only reason is to show a film. It's, well, first of all, it's also a two-hander. And that's one of the reasons, is I was looking for another two-hander from the same culture, is how two people relate to one another. But the film is a classic. It's a wonderful film. I am sure, I hope that some of you have seen it before. It's entitled The Two of Us. The Two of Us. It's a lovely little story about a very young Jewish boy in the early 40s during the war. A lot of parents sent their children outside of Paris to the Vichy area to live on farms without disclosing the fact that they were Jewish. And this is one story that's based on a true story. But I chose it because it is another two-hander, and it deals with the past in France. And there will be some moments in both films that run parallel. So interesting you asked the question. Sometimes it's unconscious on my part, but but it was conscious in why I chose the two.
Can't wait for January.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Well, okay.
That's
we
it,
managed
guys.
to.
We
I want to
appreciate.
wish you all, before you all run away, I want to wish you all, whichever holiday you're celebrating, to have a happy holiday.
And a healthy
And
one.
especially a happy, healthy New Year. Hopefully we'll see a lot of good films in the next year. I have some planned, so I hope you'll be joining me. So I'll look forward to seeing you in January.
Shelley.
Thank
Thank
you so
you
much,
all.
Shelley. Happy holiday season, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody, for
Happy
Merry
joining us.
Christmas,
your
Happy
daughter.
Hanukkah.
Yes.
All right. Good night.